on Thursday with Tom Bombadil telling them about himself, page 131 and such. So we're going to skip a bunch and pick up with after Tom Bombadil rescues them from the Barrow-wight on 146. So they leave. He tells them, beware of the Barrows. They don't. They get captured by the Barrow-wight. Frodo tries to fight against the Barrow-wight. He remembers Tom Bombadil. He starts singing Tom Bombadil's song. Tom Bombadil comes and rescues him. And then he takes everything out of the barrow and exposes it to the sun. Right? And he gives them each something from the barrow. Page 146. Old knives are long enough as swords for hobbit people, he said. Sharp blades are good to have if Shire folk go walking east, south, or far away into dark and danger. Then he told them that these blades were forged many long ago by men of Westernessa. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Carn in the land of Angmar. Okay? And a little bit earlier, he talked about the swords and such. So he walks them off, sets them on the east-west road, and walks them essentially to the border of Bree, to where they can see the prancing pony, down the road. Okay, the thing with the swords, why is this important? For those of you who've read the novel before, all of it. Anybody know? Well, these swords are going to be important in one of the central or most key scenes in the novel. When a certain being is destroyed, it's partially because of one of these swords. Okay? These swords were forged, he says, by the men of Westernessa for their battles against the Dark Lord. And he says they were overcome by the evil king of Carn in the land of Angmar. Who is the evil king of Carn now, within the current time frame in the novel? Nope. Sauron's the Dark Lord. Different Dark Lord.
The Reese Lord.
He's the king of the ring race. He's the leader of the Nazgul. Okay? Which is going to show up in just a few minutes. It's not a few pages, but we're going to skip a lot. Okay? So, they get off to Bree, they go to the sign of the Prancing Pony, the inn. Mr. Butterbur allows them in and such. Sets them up in a room, and then, kind of invites them to come down to the common room. We don't get folk from the Shire very often. And what do we see? We see Pippin have a little bit too much to drink and starts to say too much. And Frodo, meanwhile, has gone off and sat in the back in the shadows. And this dark stranger, bottom of 156, says to him, I'm called Strider. I'm very pleased to meet you, Master Underhill. Frodo says, yes, that's my name, etc. He says, well, if I were you, I'd stop your friends from talking too much. Drink, fire, chance meeting, pleasant enough, but, this isn't really quite the Shire. In other words, you're in foreign territory here. You're kind of in dangerous territory. You shouldn't. And so he says, you better move quickly. So Frodo does, right? What does he do? Jumps up on the middle of the table and starts to sing and dance. Okay? And Tolkien gives us his version of the story of the Man in the Moon. And as he's singing and dancing and he's getting to the end of the song, he sticks his hands in his pockets and disappears. Crawls over to where Strider is. Page 161, Strider says, why did you do that? Worse than anything your friends could have said. You've put your foot in it, or should I say your finger. Frodo's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, Mr. Baggins. Okay. So we get chapter 10. Frodo goes off with Strider. They go to his room, etc. Strider says, I can help you. Sam, bottom of 165. With your leave, Mr. Frodo, I'd say no. This Strider here, he warns, he says, take care. I say yes to that. Let's begin with him. Comes out of the wild. I never heard no good of such folk. He knows something that's plain, more than I like, but it's no reason we should go. Notice, Pippin looks uncomfortable. Why? It's kind of his fault this began in the first place. Okay. So Strider says, way to go, Sam. Good, showed good caution, etc., etc. Butterbur comes in, says, sorry, and gives Frodo a letter. When's the letter dated? Midsummer. When is this? Late September. Okay, it's late September. They leave after Frodo's birthday on September 22nd. Okay, so Butterbur says, I wouldn't trust this Strider here, but, it's up to you. So Frodo reads the letter. Gandalf mentions a Strider. Then he has a P.S. 3 of them. 1, don't use it again. 2, make sure it's the real Strider. These verses go with him. 3, I hope Butterbur sends this letter quickly. Okay, he doesn't do the third one, obviously. So Frodo says to Strider, bottom of 170, why didn't you tell me you were Gandalf's friend at once? It would have saved time, would it? Would you believe me? I knew nothing of this letter. For all I knew, I had to persuade you to trust me without proofs if I was to help you. So Sam, again, 171, says, whoa, time out here. You never mentioned Gandalf before till this letter came out. You might be a play-acting spy for all I can see. Really want to break into my Cockney accent, but you might have done in the real Strider. Took his clothes. What have you say to that? Strider says that you're a stout fellow, and what else? And if I really was a play-acting spy, you'd be dead. Kind of stands up full height, seems suddenly to grow taller, and his eyes gleamed a light, keen and commanding, throws back his cloak. They see the hilt of a sword. They don't see the rest of it, because the hilt and the sword is stuck in its scabbard. He says, but I am the real Strider, blah, blah, blah. Frodo, you frighten me a lot tonight, but I think one of his spies would, I don't know how to put this, seem fairer and well and feel fouler, if you understand. Strider, yeah, I get it. So I look foul and feel fair. Is that what you mean? Should Viggo Mortensen have been cast as Strider?
Absolutely.
Why?
He's not very pretty.
He's not, or he is?
I don't think he's traditionally.
See, because most women I've talked to said, are you crazy? Are you blind?
He's beautiful because he's on screen with Orlando Bloom. So,
Okay, just... He's too pretty for Strider. Who should be? Are any of you familiar... Not again. Any of you familiar with... Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott. If you're familiar with Parks and Rec, which I think some of you probably are, he played another Ron Swanson. There were 2 Ron Swanson. There was Nick Offerman's Ron Swanson, then there's another guy also named. But Sam Elliott's this big, he's like 6'6", 6'7", lanky, long legs and everything, and has this deep, gravelly voice. He's ruggedly handsome, but he's not pretty handsome. He's somebody who looks like he has lived out in the wild for a long time. His face is kind of scarred, and etc. Okay? Anybody know how old Aragorn is? He's 87. Okay? He's older than Denethor. He's older than Theoden he's going to meet. He's going to talk about knowing Theoden's father. Okay, Theoden's only in his 40s or 50s. Right? Aragorn's old. Well, it's because men of Western Nessa, especially in the line of the kings, live long lives. He lives to be, I think, 170 something. So 100 years after this, essentially. All right? So, I look foul and feel fair. That's what you're getting at, Frodo. Well, I mean, but yes. Well, how else does, he's not ugly, but how else does he look foul? Wearing a nice new cloak? No, he's stained, and mud spattered, etc. Right? So he takes out the sword that was broken, that the verses refer to, and kind of proves himself. Mary comes in, or they go looking for Mary. They find Mary's been under the Black Breath, etc. He talks about the Black Riders. Aragorn tells them what to do, which is good, because if they had stayed in the room Butterbur had given them, what would have happened to Frodo and Al? They'd be dead, and the novel would be this long rather than what it is. Okay? So they go off the next morning. They want to leave early under cover of night, but they don't. And they're seen, and they make their way to Weathertop, an old fortification. How old? Back in the former days, the battles against Sauron and the Witch King of Angmar and such. And as they make their way there, the hobbits are a little scared because they're fearful there might be a barrow and they don't want to go near barrows. He says, no barrows there, page 185. Mary asks, who is Gil-galad? Because Aragorn mentioned that, Weathertop was one of a watchtower and a signal tower, okay, that were used in the Elder Days. So, a voice starts chanting about Gil-galad and Elven King and such. And it's Sam, it's not Aragorn. Sam says, learned it from Mr. Bilbo, blah, 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 blah. Pippin. Sam says, there's a lot more in there about going to Mordor and stuff. Pippin, going to Mordor? Hope it won't come to that. Strider, shh, don't, Just like Gandalf said to Frodo, we shouldn't talk about the ring and such at night. Well, we shouldn't talk about Mordor when it's getting dark. Or really even at all, because you're just kind of asking for bad luck. They make it to Weathertop. Aragorn reads the signs that are there. Says, I think Gandalf was here October the 3rd. When is it now? It's October the 6th. Okay. So while up there, they spot, way off in the distance, on the road, dark things. Aragorn's like, damn, I was a fool, we've probably been spotted. So they've got to kind of marshal what forces they can for protection. They find a little valley, a holler, so to speak, in page 190-91. Mary says, tell us some more of Gil-galad. Okay, Gil-galad's an elven king. Tell us more of Gil-galad. You know any more of that old lay, that you spoke of? Aragorn says, yeah, I do. So does Frodo. Frodo says, I know a little bit. So, Strider says, here's what I'll do. I'll tell you the tale of Tenuvial. A short version. Why? Because it's a really long tale, the end of which isn't known. But it's a fair tale, though sad, as are all the tales of Middle-earth, and yet it might lift up your heart. Why are all the tales of Middle-earth sad? Why are none of them happy tales? They all die. In what does Middle-earth not have? Okay, what else?
Some kind of faith or religious.
Afterlife. There's no real afterlife. I mean, it is a thoroughly kind of pagan world where you die and that's it. You don't go off, there's no heaven, there's no hell per se. This is all there is, okay? So he tells the tale, and then he tells them, it's a song. He goes into what kind of song it is, what kind of meter, and all that kind of stuff, as if they really care. But Tolkien does, and that's why he goes into that detail. And he goes on and talks about, he gives them a paraphrase then of it, and says what happens. Okay? This is all from the Silmarillion. Beren was a man, fell in love with an elf woman, elf slash goddess woman. Okay? Her mother was a Maya, which is like a goddess, an angelic being. Her father was a king of elves. Beren's just a man. He tells her father, I want to marry your daughter. She loves me. I love her, blah, 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 blah. He says, you can't marry my daughter unless you bring me in your hand a Silmaril from the crown of Morgoth. Okay, that means until you march down into the lowest pit of hell and cut a jewel from Satan's crown. That's the essence. And he's like, really? That's all? That's all you want? You'd sell your daughter for such a cheap, for a piece of glass? Oh. So he does. He dies in the process. Okay? He goes off to the other world, the land of the gods. They kind of recharge his battery, send him back. He and Luthien then live, and then they die. Okay? Luthien, however, doesn't die and go off and get her batteries recharged and come on back. She says, I will be like him. She becomes immortal. So that when she dies, she really dies. She doesn't go off to her father. She is not, as other elves are, reincarnated. That's something Tolkien has in his cosmology and such. Okay? The thing about the tale of Beren and Luthien is that it's the tale of J.R.R. Tolkien and his wife Edith. When he thought of that, he was thinking of them. If you go to the cemetery where they're buried, the Wolvercote Cemetery, you will see John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, birth date, death date, Beren. Edith Pratt, I think, Tolkien, birth date, death date, Luthien. I mean, he wrote it for her, about her, etc. So, he goes on and says, from Eärendil came the kings of Numenor, that is Western Essa. He doesn't add. And me. Aragorn is direct descendant. Okay? Yeah, through hundreds of generations. Okay? So, the Black Riders come, page 195, and Frodo's tempted to put on the ring. He didn't forget the barrow nor the message of Gandalf, but something seemed to be compelling him. He puts the ring on, and what happens? It's like daytime almost. He sees clearly what? He doesn't see Aragorn, Legolas. Legolas isn't there yet. He doesn't see Aragorn, Sam, Merry, Pippin clearly. He sees the riders clearly. Okay? He strikes out at one. He gets stabbed. And he yells, O Elbereth Gilthoniel. Right? Elbereth. It's the queen of the gods. That's like, oh, Mary, Hail Mary, full of grace for a Catholic, which Tolkien is, right? And then he passes out. Chapter 12, Flight to the Ford. They come back, so to speak. Frodo comes out of his swoon. Aragorn says, I can't do a lot. I can help a little bit. Tell Sam not to give up hope. And they find the trolls from The Hobbit as they make their way to the Ford of Urinnan. And who rescues them?
Glorfindel.
Not
Arwen.
Liv Tyler. Not Arwen, Warrior Princess. So why does Peter Jackson replace Glorfindel with Arwen, Warrior Princess? Love interest? Kind of. Yeah, there is a love interest between Aragorn and Arwen. But Liv Tyler, really? Okay, I'm not going to comment. Because I'll say something I shouldn't. Why else? Peter Jackson said in an interview, why? There weren't enough female characters. It won't be only women. It won't be only men and boys coming to see the Lord of the Rings. They will be bringing their wives and girlfriends with them. Notice what that implies. Women wouldn't on their own be interested in the Lord of the Rings. It's a boy book, in other words. Just as some have said, Harry Potter is a girl book. Why? It's written by a woman. One of the things one of her editors suggested is don't put Joanne on the title page. Go by your initials. Why? Because boys won't want to read books written by a girl. How utterly stupid. Okay? So, Glorfindel shows up, puts Frodo on his horse, slaps him on the rear. Frodo beats the Dark Riders, and he gets to the Ford of Bruenna. He gets across, so now he's in Rivendell, so to speak, and then turns around. Notice, if you've ever read The Hobbit, how is this different than the entrance to Rivendell in The Hobbit?
They go. I think I'm just remembering the movies. Do they do the whole secret entrance type of thing?
Yeah, in The Hobbit, it's like you're just walking around the ground and suddenly you come to a crack in the earth. And you got to go down the switchback, zigzags. Not here at all. It's like it's totally different, okay? So, Frodo rides across the water, turns around, stands up in his stirrups, and says, go back, page 214. Go back to the land of Mordor, follow me no more. The riders halt, but Frodo had not the power of Bombadil. Notice, because Bombadil can consign that barrel weight thing to whatever. His enemies laugh, and they say, come back. To Mordor we will take you. Frodo, go back. The ring, they call. Frodo, by Elbereth and Luthien the Fair. Okay? By Mary and, Elizabeth. No, I'm not going with you. You shall have neither the ring nor me. The leader, who's now halfway across the ford, stands up in his stirrups, raises his hand. Notice, Frodo is stricken dumb. What happens to his little sword? Breaks. The elf horse reared and snorted. The foremost of the black horses had almost set foot upon the shore. And then the river rises. Frodo thinks he sees horses in the river. And he also sees, before he passes out, points of light coming towards him. And one big one. With his last failing senses, Frodo heard cries that seemed to him he saw beyond the riders a shining figure of white light. And behind it ran small shadowy forms. And then he passes out. We get book 2, mini meetings. He wakes up. There's Gandalf. There's Sam. Okay. Going to skip a bunch. Frodo asks, page 222 at the bottom. He says, Rivendell elves. Is Rivendell safe? Gandalf says yes. Here in Rivendell there still live some of his chief foes, the Elven ones, lords of the Eldar from beyond the further seas. They do not fear the ring wraiths. It's a hard word to say. For those who have dwelt in the blessed realm, that is Valinor, where the gods are in the Silmarillion, live at once in both worlds. Yeah, how does that work? How do you live both in Valinor and here? Because guess what? Glorfindel isn't in Valinor right now. Glorfindel's in Rivendell. It's not that the Blessed Realm is necessarily an actual physical place. It's kind of like what we were talking about with the Harry Potter stuff. It's a spiritual place, an immaterial, and this is the material. And against both the seen and the unseen, they have great power. Well, who are the seen? The orcs, hobbits, men, trolls. Unseen? That's not just things like the ring wraiths. Because the ring wraiths are seen, right? Because they have clothes. Take the clothes off them, and they're unseen. Why? Because they dwell in the other place, so to speak. They, as Tolkien said, they vanish, but they don't literally vanish. They kind of become invisible. Yes, Mikey?
So the ring wraiths are the Black Riders? And they're
Yes.
They're the 7 with the human with the rings?
Nine.
Is that-
9.
9 kings.
Okay.
7 dwarves, head rings. 3 elves, or 3, I won't say who, had rings, 7 dwarves had rings, 9 kings. So you had 9 kings who took the rings, wore the rings, became enslaved to the rings, and became ring wraiths. Okay? It's unclear whether Tolkien wants us to equate them with the other word that he uses, the Nazgul. Because at one point, in a very important chapter, he's going to describe the Nazgul as the flying things the ring wraiths ride. But at other points, the wraiths are called the Nazgul. Okay, so I think that's probably one of those things that Tolkien kind of hints in the forward. You know, if I ever went and did a third revised edition, I would kind of clarify that, but he doesn't. Okay, so Frodo says, "I thought I saw a white figure that shone and did not grow dim like the others. Was that Glorfindel? Yes. You saw him for a moment as he is upon the other side." What's the other side? The side we don't normally see. The side that Frodo does see when he puts on the ring, or when, as was happening here, he's almost faded. It's not like the others come up and go, "Frodo, where are you? You've mostly faded." You know, not that kind of faded, but almost totally within the power of the ring. He hadn't used the ring a lot, but he'd been wounded by the Nazgul, and it's kind of like the poison is spreading, and he was coming under their power. Okay? So, bottom of 223, Gandalf says, you know, the riders were too swift to overtake, too many to oppose. On foot, even Glorfindel and Aragorn together could not withstand all the 9 at once. But what does that imply?
They could take 1 or 2 of them at a time.
Aragorn by himself could take 1 or 2. Glorfindel could probably take 1 or 2, but not all 9. Maybe 7. You know, we're not exactly told, but what's he telling us? Aragorn is not merely what? Strider, as Sam will call him. Okay? And Glorfindel, you probably don't want to mess with. Just leave him alone. Okay? So, Frodo goes off to the council. Yeah, it's not quite the Council of Elrond. He sees Elrond for the first time. He sees Glorfindel again. Page 227. The face of Elrond was ageless, neither old nor young, though in it was written the memory of many things, both glad and sorrowful. Hair was dark as the shadows of twilight. Okay, so how dark are the shadows of twilight? Twilight's, the sun's gone down, so it's dark, but it's not pitch black. But the shadows of twilight, black. And on his hair was set a circlet of silver. His eyes were gray as a clear evening. How gray is a clear evening? And in them was a light like the light of stars. Okay, now that's a little clearer. Okay. Venerable he seemed, as a king crowned with many winters. Okay, so he's really old. We're going to find out how old in a few moments. Okay. Frodo then sees Arwen. And told a bunch of other stuff. We meet other people. We meet Glóin from The Hobbit, who's now older in dirt. Kind of literally. He's made from dirt anyways. His son is there with him. We see several others. And I'm going to skip a bunch. And go to the Council of Elrond. This is the second most important chapter. Okay? Or one of the 2 most important chapters, put it that way. It and the Shadow of the Past kind of rank up together. Why? Because we get the rest of the information we need to understand everything else that happens right here. So the Council of Elrond. How does this play out compared to the film? For those of you who've seen the film. What happens in the film version? Amy?
Gimli grabs the ring.
They fight. They bicker. They yell at each other. Gimli whips out his axe because he's going to smack the ring. Utterly asinine. Why? Why does Peter Jackson do that? Because there's not enough conflict? I mean, that's what it appears. There's not enough conflict in the story that Tolkien has written. maybe there's not enough cartoonish conflict. Because that's what Peter Jackson has done. He's done a cartoon of this. So that everything, every little thing, it's really blown up. Right? So, we find out who's at the council, and the dwarves say why they are there. Boromir says why he's there, etc. Legolas says why he's there, essentially. We're going to hear more from them. On page 242, Elrond says, "You've done well to come," talking to the dwarves. The ring. What shall we do with the ring? The least of rings, the trifle that Sauron fancies. That is the doom that we must deem. Doom, judgment, that's what that word means, that we must deem, judge. Okay? That is the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I didn't call you. He says, you've come and are here met in this very nick of time by chance, as it may seem. But it's not chance. Believe, rather, kind of like Frodo, not Frodo, Harry having to choose what to believe. Believe, rather, that it is so ordered that we who sit here and none others must now find counsel for the peril of the world. What does that mean? That's archaic language for saying what? Okay, that's the so ordered part. What about the rest? Okay, that's the ordered part. I'm talking about we must now find counsel for the peril of the world. We've got to save the world. I was watching movie trailers last night. There's some stupid movie with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, coming out, and he gets in a helicopter and goes, "Let's go save the world, baby." That's what Elrond is doing here. He's saying we've got to go save the world. It's up to us. And if we don't, then the world isn't saved. Okay? So Elrond speaks first. Why? It's his house.
Yeah.
Why else?
He's the oldest and he was there the first time.
His memory goes back the farthest. What about Gandalf? Gandalf wasn't there before.
They're there.
Gandalf comes in later. Okay? Gandalf's not born later. He just kind of comes in later. Like there's a secret door from the other world, and he just slides right through. So he goes on. He talks about the making of the ring. He talks about Numenor in all of its glory. He talks about the fall of Numenor. He talks about the bending of the world. See, when Tolkien, quote unquote, created the world, it was flat. And you could go from Middle Earth over here, across the ocean, to Numenor, an island in the middle of the earth. We call it today Atlantis. And you could go from there to Valinor. Okay? Now you can't. Why? Because it's all been bent. And Valinor is kind of floated off, You got to have a special ship to get to Valinor, Either that or some, I don't know, really good weed or something. Yeah, probably some special farmer maggot mushrooms. I don't know. The way the Hobbit leaf is described. Yeah, get some good old Toby. Anyways, Frodo says, page 243, you remember, I thought the fall of Gil-galad was a long age ago. Indeed it was, but my memory reaches back even to the elder days. And he gives us a little genealogy. Eärendil was my sire, who was born in Gondolin before its fall. My mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien of Doriath. My mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien. So Luthien was his great-great-great-grandmother? Is that right? No, great-great-grandmother. So Beren was his great-great-grandfather. Whoa! He's really old. We're talking thousands of years. Okay? I have seen 3 ages in the west of the world. If you're, curious, go back and read the appendices. That's why Tolkien gives them to us. I was at the battle when Sauron lost the ring to begin with. Okay? He says, I saw it. I saw where Gil-galad had died. I saw when Elendil fell, when the sword broke underneath him, and when Isildur cut the ring from his hand. Okay, here's something I've never understood. The ring makes you invisible, right?
If he was wearing like,
It was on his finger. He cut the ring from his finger. He had to cut his finger off.
But if you're
So he had to have seen him. So how come he could see Sauron if he's wearing a ring? If it confers invisibility.
maybe it doesn't.
Sauron.
If you're truly the master of the ring, you have control
Okay.
over it.
Yeah, he can wear the jewelry.
You can
and
choose
let-
when to be invisible.
Was Sauron dead at that point?
No, Sauron is kind of never
Sauron's
really
still,
dead.
I'm not following.
No, that's fine.
I'm
Sauron,
trying to learn.
what is Sauron? You've read Silmarillion, or you're reading the Silmarillion.
Okay, he takes Morgoth, and then he's kind of this like a Maya who is corrupted
Okay.
into what he is.
Morgoth is like Satan, the greatest of the angelic beings that was made. His name was Melkor. When he falls, he gets a new name, essentially Morgoth. That's what he's called by people. Okay, so he's like the cherubim or seraphim in the Catholic or Christian tradition. Sauron is a lesser angelic being. He's a Maya. Okay, the same thing that Luthien's mother was. Garden variety angel. Okay, give something away. Gandalf also is one of these. He's not a man. He's a wizard, but all the wizards are Maya. Okay, so Saruman is a Maya. Radagast the Brown, the stupid idiot who has,
Rabbits.
bunny rabbits for his... Talk about mushrooms, man. Peter
So
Jackson.
So what is Strider then? Is he in the same?
Strider's just a man. He is just a man. He is a descendant from the kings of Westernessa. These are the guys who lived on Numenor. Just human. That's it. Nothing.
So he's just a human.
Just
So like the Hobbit just lives a long time. But
A hobbit who possesses the.
Well, okay, I thought you said that he was just descended from something that wasn't human.
I don't know, just lives long.
well, his great. No, this Elrond's saying this. Elrond is saying that he was descended from Luthien. Okay.
But Aragorn is too, isn't he? But long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but his is mixed, much more mixed
Diluted.
than Elrond's is. Yeah, diluted if you want. So Boromir breaks in and says, "The ring. That's if ever that tale was heard in the South, it's long been forgotten." Okay. So he says, "That'd be nice if we had the ring." Elrond, nope. Isildur should have destroyed it. Tried to encourage him, but he wouldn't. Why? He took it kind of as a trophy for defeating Sauron, because Sauron killed his father. I mean, this old revenge notion idea. Okay? So, Elrond keeps talking, and then he finishes. And Boromir, 245, butts in. Says, let me talk about Gondor and such. So he talks about the little poem that came to his brother one night. And then it came to him. Notice, comes to Faramir first. Kind of implying Faramir ought to be the one to go to figure out what the poem means, but Boromir has to do it. Okay? And he tells us what the poem is. And then Aragorn stands up. Bottom of 246. It says, here in the house of Elrond more shall be made clear to you. Here's the sword that was broken. And he throws it on the table. It's a sword that still is broken, obviously. Boromir, and who are you, and what have you to do to Minas Tirith? In other words, and who the hell are you, and what are you doing with that sword? Notice the difference in the films. Because here, Elrond says he is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. And notice how Tolkien does this. Said Elrond. He breaks up the little speech. Why? Because there's a pause in it. And the pause kind of lets a little bit of dramatic tension build, and he is descended through many fathers from Isildur, Elendil's son of Minas Ithil. In other words, Boromir, sit down, shut up, this is your future king. Boromir is merely what? Future steward. What's a steward do?
Keep the seat.
Keeps the seat warm. He's a placeholder. Okay? He is the chief of the Dunedain in the north, and few are now left of that folk. Frodo, thank God. Here, you take the ring. I don't. Aragorn's like, no. Okay? So Gandalf says, come on, Frodo, pull out the ring, show everybody. And he holds it up. Behold Isildur's bane, Elrond says. Notice the very next thing. Boromir's eyes glinted. Okay. In this novel, whenever somebody's eyes glint, not a good sign. It always implies one thing. I want. It's either I want or evil has just entered that person. He gazed at the golden thing. He says, halfling. Paul mentioned a halfling. Durin's Isildur's bane. He's holding it up. Is then the doom of Minas Tirith come at last? Boromir interprets the line that says, doom is near at hand, to mean Minas Tirith will fall. Aragorn, it's not what it said. He says, doom and great deeds are indeed at hand. For the sword that was broken is the sword of Elendil that broke beneath him. It's been treasured by his heirs. He goes, what do you want, Boromir? Do you want the house of Elendil to return to Gondor? Well, what does that really mean? Do you want to give up the stewardship? Do you want a king to come back? How long has Gondor been without a king? If I remember right, it's like 3,000 years. Long time. What would this be like today? Pick a country that has a missing king, so to speak. England. Which king would it be? Where's Tolkien get the idea of the missing king? Arthur. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Okay? It would also be like the Jews. Because what, if you're an Orthodox believing Jew, what are you still looking for? The Messiah, the son of David. Hasn't been one for how long? Well, David's about 800 BC. 2,800 years, that's pretty close. Okay? Do you want the sword of Elendil to... okay, what's that equivalent to? Charles, Prince, do you want the sword of Arthur to return to London? Do you want Excalibur back? Now, I kind of think doddering old Charles would go, hell no, I want to be king at least for a little bit. Got to bump off his mother, before she lets her fingers go over the crown. Boromir, I was not sent to beg any boon. In other words, I'm not going to beg from you, because what is Aragorn to him? Not the king, right? Because he's not king. Something has to happen before Aragorn can actually become king. There's a couple things that have to happen. Ring's got to be destroyed. And before he can marry Arwen, Elrond's daughter, Elrond kind of pulled the same thing that Lúthien's father pulled on Beren. Not only does the ring have to be destroyed, Aragorn's got to be king again. Or has to be king. So a couple little minor details before they can go through with the wedding ceremony. So Bilbo jumps up, starts spouting off poetry. Aragorn smiles at him. The smile is his way. Bilbo, shut up, sit down. And notice what he says to Boromir. For my part, I forgive your doubt. Why? Little do I resemble the figures of Elendil and Isildur as they stand carved in their majesty in the halls of Denethor. Why does he say that? He's telling Boromir, by the way, I've been there. I know what they look like. I am but the heir of Isildur, not Isildur himself. Well, what happens when you copy something over and over and over and over and over and over and over?
Changes.
It becomes decrepit. The copy gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. He's saying, I am but a mere copy. I'm not. But, he says, I have had a hard life. And the leagues that lie between here and Gondor are but a small part in the count of my journeys. I have crossed many mountains, many rivers, trodden many plains. That's the South Farthing. There's another map at the beginning. Go to, for a moment, or not. Where's that map? There's a map somewhere in the back. I don't know if it's, yeah, there it is. There are several maps. Yeah, I'm trying to find the big one. This one. Okay, right now they are up here. Aragorn says, I've had a hard life. I've traveled far. How far? Off the map, south. Off the map, east. Boromir says how hard it was for him to get from where? From roughly right about here to here. So Boromir's traveled that far, and it was hard. Aragorn says, I've done this and this multiple times. Don't talk to me about how hard the travel is. Okay? So, he goes on. If Gondor, Boromir, has been a stalwart tower, we who? We Rangers of the North, we have played a different part. How? Many evil things there are that your strong walls and bright swords do not stay. You know little of the lands beyond your bounds. Peace and freedom? The North would have known them little but for us. Who's he talking about in the North? Really two places. The Shire, Bree. Fear would have destroyed them. But when dark things come from the houseless hills or creep from sunless woods, they fly from us. What roads would any dare to tread if the Dunedain were all dead? And yet less thanks have we than you. Because Boromir kind of takes a bit of umbrage at Elrond essentially saying, Gondor has not been doing much. Travelers scowl at us. Strider am I to one fat man who lives within a day's march of foes that would freeze his heart. Who's that fat man? Bartleman Butterbur. Or lay his little town in ruin. But we wouldn't have it any other way. If simple folk are free from care and fear, simple they will be, and we must be secret to keep them so. What's he saying? Simple folk, the Shire, are simple and free from care. Simple they will be. That is, they will stay simple. They will stay without fear or knowledge of the outside world. And we should keep them that way. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. He's saying it's our job. To what? Allow them that innocence. Well, whose job? Rangers of the North? Soldiers? I think Tolkien wants us to do a little applicability here. The job of the sentinel standing at guard somewhere across the globe. He's saying, and what kind of thanks do we get? That has been the task of my kindred while the years have lengthened and the grass has grown. But now, world's changing again. Now, he says, we can't stand guard protecting them. Now, the sword will be reforged, and I will come to Minas Tirith. Notice, not I might, not if you let me, I will. And I'm bringing my big sword, too. What's this Aragorn's way of saying, like it or not, I'm coming. You're going to have to deal with it. Okay? So, Bilbo tells his story, how he came by the ring. Then Gandalf tells his story and how he came to find out the ring is the ring and such. Page 254. He talks about heating up the ring and reading it. And he reads the letters of the ring in the language of Mordor. Ashnaz Durbatulak, Ashnaz Gimbatul, Ashnaz Thrakatulak, Adburzum Ishi Krimpatul. And the light goes down and everybody gets the willies. And Elrond says, don't ever use that language here again. And Gandalf says, well, let's hope none ever will. And I think probably when this came out, people heard that language and they heard it's very guttural German. It's very Germanic. So he translates it. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Yep, this is it. This is the one ring. Found out from Gollum, who Aragorn left and I left with the elves, and Legolas is like, sorry, he escaped. Okay. So Gandalf talks about being captured by Saruman. Okay. And what Saruman offered him. Page 259 and following. And listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper. I said we. We what? We could join with that power that's rising. We, for it may be, if you will join with me, a new power is rising. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numenor. So he says, here's our choice. We can join with that power. It would be wise. Its victory is at hand. And as the power grows, its proved friends will also grow. And he says, we can maybe do what with this power? We can maybe shift it to our ends. We can maybe turn it to what? Become less evil? Now, Tolkien's writing this late 40s, early 50s. Unbeknownst to him, this was going to become a stated policy of the United States government with a power. We don't have it anymore. Congress got rid of it in the mid-2000s, I think it was. But in the 1990s, 80s and 90s, there was something Congress had to pass every year for China. It's called Most Favored Nation Trading Status, MFN. Had to be renewed annually. Okay? And it always came down to two arguments. How do we best turn China to kind of our way of thinking in terms of, things like human rights and such? Well, one argument was we enter into a trade war with them. We pull our goods away, okay, until they learn they have to act better in order to get the number one market in the world to sell their goods. Okay? It's one way. The other argument was, no. We engage in free trade with them. We engage in diplomatic missions, blah, 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 blah. And by so doing, we will gradually be able to move them to be nicer people. That's Saruman. Okay? And yet China still, annually, engages in activities we don't think are very nice, like paving Christians into roads. Literally. Taking people out of churches, pouring asphalt, putting the people down, running them over with the big steamroller-like things, and then putting more asphalt on top. There are accounts every year for the last 10 years of that happening. Okay? So what does Gandalf essentially say? No, I don't think that'll work. So Saruman says, all right, you don't like that idea. I understand, Sauron's kind of an icky character. Hate to get into bed with him. How about this one? we take the ring for ourselves. Gandalf's like, okay, let's see, take the ring for ourselves. See, and how will that exactly work? It's not a double looped ring. It's not like I put one finger in and you put one finger in and we both go, total power. It's not like, okay, I get it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, you get it Mondays, Wednesdays, and the other days we lock it up. No, he says that won't work either. So Gwaihir the Wind Lord comes and rescues him. Okay? So they got to come up with, what are we going to do with the ring? So what are some of the ideas posited? Beginning of page 265. Tom Bombadil is mentioned. And Aristor says, let's send the ring to him. Well, first, Elrond says, I forgot about Bombadil. We should have asked him to come. Was anybody else asked to come? No. If he was supposed to be there, guess what? He'd have knocked on the door and been there. Okay? Aristor, can we send the ring to him? Gandalf, nope, wouldn't do any good. He doesn't have power over the ring. Say rather, the ring has no power over him. Why? Because he's his own master. Well, who is ever really their own master? Except for maybe Eru Ilúvatar. Okay? So, Glorfindel. Yeah, well, that won't solve the problem. It just postpones the inevitable. All right? So what other options? Galdor. Well, okay, so he doesn't have the power, but maybe there are some here that do. Maybe Círdan does. Maybe Elrond does. Elrond, not me. Nope. Okay, Glorfindel. Okay, so that gives us two options. Send it over the sea, meaning to the gods, to Valinor. Over the sea means actually out of Middle-earth entirely. It's like, dialing the hotline to heaven and say, God, would you take care of this problem of mine? No, it's your problem. Okay? Or, what's the other one? Destroy it. Elrond says, yeah, but Gandalf says we can't destroy it. Glorfindel, okay, so those two, well, let's throw it in the ocean. No, because those things have a way of coming back. What's Boromir say? Let's use it. That's why we have it. Let's use it in middle of 267. Go forth to victory. This is why when the book was first published, a lot of people said, definitely the atom bomb. That's right. And Boromir's what? The champion of the West. He's the good United States, whatever. All right. Nope, can't use it. Why? Belongs to Sauron, made by him, altogether evil. Anything done with it, what? Will ultimately be evil. Moreover, he goes on and says, what's going to happen to everything done by the other rings that it was made to control? Once this ring is destroyed, what will the power of the three given to the elves be? Nothing. They will lose all their power. How do we know that's true? When was the last time you saw an elf? That's the proof. They've all left. They've all left Middle. This is Middle Earth. Well, maybe not Peckall, because it's hell. The world that we inhabit is Middle Earth, right? So, Gandalf says, well, there is one way. Take it to Mount Doom, find the pit, and throw it in. Aristor says, well, that's foolishness. Gandalf says, no, it's not despair. 269. For despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. Well, who sees the end beyond all doubt? According to Gandalf, who can despair? No one. Because no one can see the end beyond all doubt. Well, take that back. There's only one who can see the end beyond all doubt, and that's Iluvatar. Why? Because he saw the beginning. He saw what the Ainu were created through their songs in the Silmarillion. So, we got to have somebody destroy the ring, and what happens? Golly gee, look at the time. Oh, here's that passage in that book I wanted to read. And everybody just kind of puts their heads down and doesn't look up, because you've been in this situation maybe, and if not, you will sometime in your professional employment. There's a committee meeting, something horrible's got to be done. You don't want to do it. So you don't look up. Because as soon as you look up, thanks for volunteering. Okay? Frodo, I'll take it. Don't know the way. And Elrond says, you know, Frodo, I think you're supposed to. I think it is meant for you. Does he say it's because it's time for the little people to do great things? Trite pablum from the... Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? If you do not find a way, no one will. Okay? So, Sam's going, because, you know, he's not supposed to be there, and he's there. Who else goes? Who are the members of the fellowship? So Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Gimli, Legolas, Orlando. Gotta go. Gotta beautify the place wherever he goes. Okay. Aragorn, Boromir, and Gandalf. 9 why?
9 rings.
9 kings. 9 riders, the 9 Nod School, okay? So 9 walkers. Why does Elrond not want Merry and Pippin to go? He says at the very least, okay, Merry can go, but not Pippin. Loose lips, sink ships, possible. Why else? Kind of related to that. He says he's too young. He's not serious enough. And he wants Pippin to do something else. What is it? He wants to send him back to the Shire for what purpose? Punishment? No. Preparation. Just pause for a moment. Think if Pippin did go back to the Shire. What wouldn't happen? The scouring of the Shire. What else wouldn't happen? Gonna give something big away. Should I?
No.
Okay, I won't.
I ruined Lupin's death anyway, so I probably
So the ring goes south. We're gonna skip a lot. Right? They try to go over Mount Caradhras, and it won't let them. It's described as having its own will. Okay? So instead, they take the journey in the dark. What does Aragorn warn Gandalf of before they go into Moria? I say to you, beware Gandalf the Grey. He says, I'm not saying it to anybody else, it's you. And what happens? Fly, you fools! You know, Gandalf falls at Durin's Bridge. Okay? By the way, are you familiar with the utterly idiotic, internet solution to what Gandalf really meant there? What is it?
to use the eagles to fly.
That's what he really meant. He didn't mean fly, flee. He meant when you get out of Moria, dial up Gwaihir's, 1-800 number and have the Uber, actually this would be Lyft, come get you, right? And lift you away straight where?
Yeah.
Straight to Mount Doom.
Wouldn't see that come in at all.
It could be Uber too, because Uber is German for over.
Yeah, it is, but Luft is fly, okay, up into the air. The Luftbildung, the Luftwaffe, okay? So, they make their way, they get into Moria, and what does Pippin do? Page 313. Yeah, he's always doing the wrong thing, right? Okay, who in this room wouldn't do what Pippin does? They get into this big guard room, right? And there's a well. Okay? How deep is that sucker? And he picks up a rock. He doesn't go and knock a skeleton into it. Ooh, scary.
This is an accident.
Peter Jackson, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say he just needs to die. Just he picks up a rock. And it finally goes, bloop. Gandalf. What's that? Fool of a took, when Pippin admits to what he did. This is a serious journey, not a hobbit walking party. Throw yourself in next time, and then you'll be no further nuisance. Well, what happens almost immediately? We hear the clunk, and then in rhythm, and Gimli's like, that's a hammer. Or I never heard a hammer. Well, he's a dwarf. He works with hammers all the time. It's a hammer. Gandalf. Yes, and I don't like it. Pippin woke something up. Okay? He wakes up the orcs. So, they get attacked. They go into they read the bit of the Black Book of Mazarpool that they find. And if you ever have the opportunity, I don't know that you'd be able to do it or not. Tolkien actually made the Black Book of Mazarpool that they read from. That was Balin's journal, essentially. He had a mock-up of this. Okay, in the late 50s, Tolkien sold the manuscript materials for The Lord of the Rings to Marquette University in Marquette, Wisconsin, to raise the money to pay off a tax debt. Okay, and he sold it all for like 10 grand, pounds, not dollars. Okay, so one time I was at a conference there, and the conference was Tolkien related and stuff. And we went into the archives and everything, and we went into the room that has the manuscripts and has the Black Book of Mazarpool, which has smoke and smear on it. It's got blood on it. If I remember right, Tolkien, pricked his finger and dripped some blood on it and made it smear. I mean, the guy was a nutcase for originality. All the maps that he drew, all the originals are there. Okay, and so they read this, and they get attacked. They run away. Gandalf blocks whatever is at the door. He runs down to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, page 326 and following. It says there's something there, bottom of 329. Gandalf's on the bridge, and we now see this thing. Legolas lets out a scream, a cry of dismay and fear. Two great trolls appear. They bore great slabs of stone. It came to the edge, whatever it is, came to the edge of the fire. Light faded as if a cloud had been over it. With a rush, it leaped across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it. Wreathed about it, black smoke swirled in the air. It has a mane. It's on fire. A Balrog. Within the Lord of the Rings, what do we know about Balrogs at this point? Absolutely nothing. They've not been referred to at all. A Balrog, Gimli, Durin's Bane, Gandalf. And I'm already weary. In other words, I drained all my batteries by putting the magical, spell up there. Now I understand. So Gandalf goes out to the front of the bridge and tells this Balrog, you cannot pass, 3:30. The orc stood still, dead silent. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Ainur. That's the sword. Claim drink, I think. Okay. You cannot pass. But what's the secret fire? Go ahead and say it.
I wanted to say it's like his order, but I don't think that's right.
The secret fire is what Iluvatar actually uses in the making of everything. Okay? He's saying, I'm a servant of Eru. I'm not going to really.
So it's like the eternal flame.
Yeah, kind of. But Asgard rots and falls away. Iluvatar doesn't. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of doom. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass. Okay. Balrog doesn't make an answer, but notice, it kind of pauses for a minute. It's not because of the flame of Anor. It's the whole secret fire thing. The Balrog knows who that is. The Balrog knows, secret fire could essentially go, puny god. Pulls out Glamdring. Aragorn says, he's not going to be alone. Gandalf again says, you cannot pass. Gandalf takes the staff, hits the bridge shatters. Balrog falls, swings its whip, pulls Gandalf down, fly, and they escape. So Gandalf's dead. Mostly. They go off to Lothlorien. They're taken to Lothlorien. Okay? And they get into Lothlorien. They meet Galadriel. They're taken up to Galadriel's flet, which is her treehouse. And Celeborn says some stuff. Says, Gandalf was a fool for essentially doing what he did. Galadriel says, he would be rash that said that, page 356. Needless were none of the deeds of Gandalf in life. Those that followed him knew not his mind, cannot report his full purpose. But these are all blameless. Don't repent of your welcome to the dwarf. Why? Because when was the last time a dwarf was in Lothlorien? Durin's time. See, the dwelves and the orcs. The dwelves and the orcs. The dwarves and the elves are like what in our world? Even worse. No, cats and dogs can get along. How about NAACP and the Modern American Nazi Party? That would kind of be close. Or
Cubs and Cardinals fans.
I was going to say Palestinians and Jews, but okay, something like that, okay? I mean, something really. So she says, don't, and she speaks to Gimli in his language. And what happens to him? Yeah, it's like, here, take it, just be kind, I mean, he is smitten. So that later on, when somebody brings words of Galadriel to Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gimli's like, she didn't have anything to say to me. And then when the person does bring the word, he capers a jig, we're told. Capers. That's dancing, like an Irish jig. Fat, little, stout dwarf. Okay? Yeah, he's really excited. So, Boromir doesn't like Galadriel. Aragorn says, careful. We're going to pick up with the Mirror of Galadriel on whatever day that is. We'll finish this very quickly and get into the two towers. So,